I just see 16 and 17 last year, from 19 and 15 the year before, from an Elite Eight appearance the year before that in year one, to now probably going 2 and 16 or 3 and 15 in the Big 12 and having the worst record that we've seen since the Asbury days.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. I'm John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. A little history made by the Wildcats on Saturday. We'll talk about it. Historically bad loss to Iowa State at Bramlage Coliseum. At least we have Ben Holiday bottled in Bond Bourbon, my friends. If you need to relax, get away from all of this for a little while, just kick back with a glass of Ben Holiday bottled in Bond Bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery. They've got 360 vodka too. So if you have a Super Bowl party coming up for this weekend, great time to get stocked up for that. Go check at your local liquor store. If they don't have it, make sure and tell them to get some Ben Holiday bottled in Bond Bourbon. Thank you to them for supporting our show and supporting the Cats, ladies and gentlemen. They do that when times are good and when times are bad. And certainly in basketball, times are pretty bad right now. K-State loses 95-61 to Iowa State. This was a 29-point game in the first half. It was a 39-point game at one point in the second half. If Iowa State wanted to win this by 40, I'm sure they could have. I cannot imagine how enjoyable that was as an Iowa State fan, with the relationship that they have, not just with K-State, but with Jerome Tang specifically. So, yeah, this is not great. It was the third worst home loss of all time in K-State basketball history, the second worst in Bramlage Coliseum history. So that's not the kind of history that you want to be making. And then, of course, the press conferences continue to get more and more contentious between Jerome Tang and everybody. We're going to play you some clips of that and talk about all of that. But let's start with just reacting to the game itself. You lose by 34. You're down by 39. It was a 29-point game with time left in the first half, right? This got away very, very quickly. Acknowledging that, yes, K-State is without four contributors. 3 in particular. Moby hadn't played a whole lot this year. But 3 guys that are regular contributors. But, it felt like Iowa State was playing much harder throughout basically the entirety of this game. I don't know. DY, your thoughts, your takeaways from what you watched actually on the floor there.
Yeah, it was never competitive. It was hard to not laugh at times at the discrepancy between the two squads. You got one playing extremely hard, getting every rebound, getting every loose ball, making shots, where everything on the offensive end looks easy for them. On the other end, all they had to do was basically let K-State make one pass. Sometimes it wasn't even that. And then they just put on the double team, right? And then K-State was lost. Just had no answer. It was like they've never been double teamed in their life, had no idea how to quickly pass and move the ball, move the defense. They just let Iowa State's defense collapse on them and could barely score. You mentioned as bad a home loss as you can have. I think the second worst in Bramlage Coliseum, the worst since 1992. The historical marks that Jerome Tang, the historical lows that he's producing is just one after another this season. Kansas State led for 21 seconds. That was it. So I think it was a 4-2 lead at the beginning of the game. And after that, it was curtains. So demoralizing to say the least. Embarrassing. Every adjective you could think of. And I feel, and it was worse because freaking Jack Hartman got honored at halftime because he's going to the Hall of Fame. Lon Kruger was there. It was like the worst possible time it could happen to you. The Legends weekend and you're down by 50-21 at halftime. I remember the worst part, I think, in terms of point differential. Well, not exactly because they got down by more eventually. But just because it was so early in the game. It was 49-17 Iowa State. Yes, 49-17. And then they got an open three. It might have been Momcilovic or Josh Jefferson. I was like, well, that's going to go in too. It's going to be 52-17 at home. They ended up missing it in K-State went a tiny run, but that 52-17, that would have been more of an exclamation point than I think even 95-61 is.
Well, if TJ Otzelberger didn't pull his starters in the last 2 minutes, it would have been the worst home defeat in school history.
He didn't against Colorado either the game before, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, 41 points is the worst home defeat occurred in 1992 against Oklahoma. If I was TJ Otzelberger, I wouldn't have pulled the starters after what Jerome Tang said in Ames, honestly. So I would have left him in. But he's obviously got to juggle injuries and making sure his team stays healthy as well. But yeah, an embarrassing performance. And just once again, it just looks like a junior high basketball team going up against NBA guys. Like the mismatches are so large at times this year when they play against Arizona and they're down by 30, when they play against Iowa State and they're down by this margin. And guess what? They still get to play Houston, still get to play Texas Tech. We're going to see more performances like this. And, I haven't done this yet. Maybe I will. I don't know if I have the appetite, even me, to go do this, but they've now lost the last 2 home games by 24 points and 34 points. It also to the 2 schools that are basically your rival, Kansas and Iowa State. And you've lost by a combined 58 points on your home floor over the last 2 games. But I don't know if there's a worse 2-game stretch in terms of margin of defeat in K-State basketball history, frankly, especially on your home court. And now this team's lost by 16 at home to Bowling Green, 24 to KU, 34 to Iowa State. They were down by 18-20 to Seton Hall. They lost by 11. They were down by 16 to UCF at home. They lost by 9. They were down double digits to BYU. They lost by 10. Like they don't even do things well on their home court. Like it's embarrassing. Surprisingly, they actually play better, it seems, on the road. I mean, they could have won at Arizona State. They could have won at West Virginia, could have won at Oklahoma State. But the home court factor, where Jerome Tang was so good against ranked teams, has completely vanished. This team just doesn't have the roster composition or the coaching to be successful. So another embarrassing performance, maybe definitely the most embarrassing of the Jerome Tang era. But look, he now owns 2 of the 6 worst defeats at home in school history. They lost to Houston last year by 30, which was the 5th worst defeat in school history on a home court for K-State. And now this surpasses it, a 34-point margin. So, they're toast.
Jerome Tang likes to say that the home court advantage at Bramlage is worth 10 points. So can't imagine how bad that would have looked if not for the home court advantage. Although to your point, yes, Cole, they have been better on the road. But then it's like, on the road, if we're going to talk about coaching here, it drives you even more insane because they've just found such stupid ways to lose on the road. And you just have horrible moment after horrible moment. PJ Haggerty trying to, there's like no real great set play run for him, and he's trying to draw a foul instead of actually putting a shot up after you've blown a 4-point lead in the final 5 minutes of the game at West Virginia in the midweek, right? I mean, it's just a mix of finding dumb ways to lose combined with getting totally blasted. And it is interesting. I mean, Cole, we've seen some bad K-State basketball in our lifetimes. If you go back to the Jim Woldridge, Tom Asbury era, this is probably more like shades of Tom Asbury than it is Jim Woldridge. Because it was like the point I was going to make is like Woldridge, those teams were undermanned for sure. You knew that they didn't have the talent, but they generally played really hard, and there was a lot of the finding stupid ways to lose. I mean, it was like watching the West Virginia or Oklahoma State game just like night in, night out. It felt like for a lot of the Woldridge era. But it was like you could see, you're like, well, they're fighting pretty hard. They're just not, they're undermanned. And they certainly didn't have $10 million in NIL spend behind them. That's just the undercurrent to all of this. It's one thing, and we're going to play some of the clips from Jerome Tang in a minute, but he's talked a lot about, one of his lines yesterday was just like, hey, like Iowa State was just better. Like, you guys want there to be something we could have done differently. They're just better. I was told, now I didn't hear this, but I was told on postgame radio, and Cole, maybe you heard this, you can speak to this, that he said we have to close the talent gap on Iowa State. And the undercurrent to all this is like, okay, that is one thing. If you don't have the resources of your peers. If you're just getting started, we're deep into this thing, and there is so much money that's spent on this roster. There was so much money that was spent on last year's roster. Like, they have spent $10 million on the roster each of the last 2 years. It is top 20 for sure. Iowa State notoriously does not spend as much NIL. Like, they just lost Matt Campbell, basically, among many other things, for NIL troubles. Like, they didn't have the money. He was talking about having to do his own NIL. Anyway, Iowa State doesn't have the money. I just heard a story this weekend from somebody about like how little they were paying initially, their trio of stars. You have way more allocated to you in terms of resources, and TJ Otzelberger is beating you by 34 at home, and we got to close the talent gap. Like, dude, that just doesn't fly. I know there's not anything he can say that's going to make anybody happy, but I don't know. I mean, that just is as exemplary of the problem as anything. Like, we got to close the talent gap. $10 million wasn't enough to close the talent gap. Like, that is the problem. The money is the undercurrent that just makes all of this infuriating, because K-State has equipped Jerome Tang with everything he could possibly have asked for to be successful. And yet here we are for a second straight year with a 30-point home loss to somebody. And it's, well, we got to close the talent gap. Last year's, we got to go to the Houston model, which of course didn't happen anyway after last year. So that I think is the biggest piece of this, that, you know, Jerome Tang won't say it, but, and I understand, I wouldn't say it either, but that's what drives you just mad about everything that's happening right now.
Yeah, close the talent gap, and they probably spend 2x more than Iowa State. I would imagine probably more than 2x, if I had to guess. You guys talked about playing better on the road. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I've been to a few of those road games. I think it's more about playing worse teams on the road, because those three teams you rattled off are not BYU, are not Kansas, and are not Iowa State.
Probably so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he had multiple clips, John, where about the talent gap. And I know we're going to play a couple of them, but like he said, they're built differently. They're physically better than we are right now. All this, like, that talking point is inconsistent with what Jerome Tang told this fan base repeatedly during his time here, which was to expect to win a national championship. You give us the resources, we will win. They have given him top 25 financial resources in the country, and I'm being conservative there. It's more than that in all likelihood, but he's got top 25 resources at its disposal. And yet he's coming out and saying, he said this about Houston last year too, and Houston's an elite program. We know this with Kelvin Sampson when they came in and beat K-State by 30, but like, he continues to say things like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, they're just so much better. Well, this is the man that said, if you give him the resources, he will win. And they've given him that, and they're getting their doors blown off on their home court and having the third worst home defeat in school history. So it's very frustrating that he continued to say that. And he said it repeatedly in yesterday's press conference. Like, there's nothing I could do, basically. You know, they're just better than we are. You want us to do something differently, but when they're as good as they are, et cetera. And, you know, you had Jeff Goodman tweeting on Saturday that UCF is 17-4 now after beating Texas Tech at home, and they've got a $3 million roster in NIL at UCF. Most people couldn't name the players that are on their roster. Johnny Dawkins has done a marvelous job there, and he's figuring it out. Nebraska's top 5 in the country. They're figuring it out. There are so many schools without history or without the NIL resources that K-State has that have figured it out.
Talk about people jumping off the bandwagon, like Jeff Goodman in Field of 68 for the social media post that they had about, you know, the spies in the huddle doing work. Must have been doing a lot of work, you know, against Iowa State on Sunday. I think there was quite a bit of posts from both players and donors, even ones that have been in their corner before, now completely out. Like, they don't have a whole lot of capital left, if they do have any.
Yeah. And here's the problem, and we all know this. Like, when you hear Jerome Tang say, we need to close the talent gap, how the hell is that going to happen next year? If he was back as the head coach at Kansas State, because he's not going to have near the resources to do it. So,
no, the only hope for next year, like, if you're not going to be able to fire him, and again, you know, the $18 million buyout, we'll see. The only hope next year is that you close some kind of coaching gap. It's not going to be a talent gap. You just need a better team. You need a better team that needs to be coached better. But obviously we've got numerous examples that would point to, doesn't seem like that's moving in the right direction. And again, I will repeat this theme throughout the show, but one of the things, I've been saying this for 2 years now, Jerome Tang needs some humility, and we've just never really seen that. And I think that's the first step toward being a better coached team, is like having some humility about what's happened here. And there's, as we'll see in these press conference clips, just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of that right now. Look, flawed messenger here, not only because we loved cocky Jerome Tang a bunch, because when you're winning, it was awesome. But then you can't just like run and hide when things go poorly. And that seems to be what's happening. And then obviously, yes, like we're all human. We all have our moments where we're not very humble. But here we are showing some humility, at least saying, yeah, we were idiots. We bought in way too much on this. It's like,
we bought in again this past offseason. Yeah.
We were trying, dude. We were trying. I bought in hard at, I wore that damn giant chain at Sprint Center for the Nebraska games this year and Mississippi State. Like we were trying, but I also feel like that makes us in a way like more qualified to say this. Like we gave them every chance and more. We there is a part of this where it does. I don't want to make it too personal, but it's like we carried a lot of water. We carried a lot of water for this staff. We went to war. We went to war with the president of the university. War. We said wild things about the university president, which again, on us. Okay, I'm taking responsibility for that. But like, I went to war with the fan base last year when they went on their hot stretch, and I was like, hey, you guys shouldn't have been, and people got mad at me for that. Like we've carried a lot of water, and that's what it was. It was at a lot of points in time. It was carrying water for these guys, and so the attitude that's being reflected right now from the program is it digs at me. It does.
And all that water being carried and all that support given, and now they're just making blame of people that did all of that for them too.
Yeah, I have a lot of regrets myself for the way that I handled some things in the past. So apologize about that. And many of our listeners were recognizing red flags and seeing issues maybe before I was blinded. I had blind spots to all of this. I also had I tried to vow to be, me personally, more supportive of the next basketball coach, because I was really negative at the end of the Bruce Weber tenure, and I didn't want to be that guy again. And then Tang did what he did. And after year one, and it was impossible for me to not just be in love with that and the attitude that he had. And it's why it's almost just surreal to me that we sit in this spot 3 years later having to talk about Jerome Tang the way that we do. It really does suck. We wanted Jerome Tang to thrive here in this coaching staff. And it's stunning to me that how much the wheels came off the track with this staff. And I just don't see any way it's fixed. So yeah, I have a lot of regrets for how I spoke about the situation of the university president, et cetera. I think there were still issues there and how it was handled, but went to bat, and kind of regret that.
Yeah, agreed. Like I don't think anyone handled that situation very well all the way around. We don't need to rehash all of that for sure. But yeah, it turned into a war, and I think I don't know, whatever. We don't need to get down that road. I feel like he knew that he could kind of weaponize everybody the way he did, and he's good at stuff like that. And he did it anyway. All right, we'll play you some of the clips, including one clip from a former 3Ma show to accentuate some of this, coming up next.
What's going on, everybody? It is Ben Heisler, KCSN betting analyst. Happy Super Bowl week to all of you. It is Super Bowl 60, and you know by now that it deserves a sports book that is built for the moment. We've been talking about them all season. Been great partners of ours, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60. It's putting you right in the center of the biggest game of the year. And listen, it's the Super Bowl. We've seen some wild things happen. And when anything can happen, DraftKings has your back with early exit. If a player goes down in the first half, you still get paid out in cash immediately once your bet settles. There's no bonus bets. There's no waiting. It all comes together for you. It's going to be a fun matchup. We got the Patriots and the Seahawks. Seahawks right now at DraftKings Sportsbook, a 4.5-point favorite with the total sitting at 45.5. You want to take the Patriots on the money line, you can do so just under 2-1 odds at plus 190. Me personally, I'm leaning towards that number with the Patriots. Now, in fairness, we've seen this number go all the way up to Patriots plus 5.5. I ended up grabbing them right at the very beginning at plus 4.5, thinking that line might go down. I still think it will. I'm expecting this line to close somewhere around 3.5 to 4. So I think you can still get good value with a lot of that public money likely coming in on the Pats. So I'm on Pats plus 4.5. I think that's the right line here, and I think it's a good opportunity. But remember, here's what you really want to know is that if you are new to DraftKings, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. You can get on board the props. There's different Super Bowl MVPs. If you want to take the quarterback plays or the long shot variety ones, all those are available for you at DraftKings Sportsbook. But here's what you do. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now, use that code KCSN, that is code KCSN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, let's start with the West Virginia clip, because of all the things that were said at the press conference, which it got a bit snippy after Iowa State, I thought the worst clip was the talking about the NCAA taking away 3 players that should have been on his roster. We're gonna compare contrast this with something that Jerome Tang said in 2024 with us. So let's first play West Virginia, Jerome Tang talking about, frankly, making some excuses about the roster that he has.
As the head coach of this program, the CEO of it, to put together a team and build a program that will be on that level year in and year out. And I ain't figured that out yet because they keep changing the rules on me, right? Like once they get the rules set, right, like then I can have a consistent plan, because there are 3 guys that should be on my roster right now that are not on my roster because the rules changed. Okay. And that's not even the guys who are injured. Okay. So if they will give me consistent rules, then I know how to move forward and operate. And now we'll figure it out, because I got a staff that we're relentless. We don't stop.
All right, so there's part one. Now, we imagine that he's talking about Max Jones, who, that was a long shot. He was out of eligibility. There was hope that because of like Diego Pavia and the JUCO stuff, you could figure out an extra year there. But they went into last year knowing like he's got 1 year. I don't love trying to bank on him being a guy anyway. Tyreek Smith, another one. They took him last year, hoping that he could play this year, but knowing the entire time that there was a chance that he would not be able to. And it seemed like a risk the entire time. The third guy, I don't know if he's talking about Bryce Desert from France or whoever, probably. But if you're going to count on that as a key cog, how well have the Europeans done that you went and got already? None of those guys are massive impact guys. Max Jones and Tyreek Smith would be solid pieces. We're not talking about Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa here. But the thing that we really wanted to show here was, okay, the complaint there is the NCAA keeps changing the rules on me. Here is Jerome Tang talking about the lack of rules and the way the NCAA is right now being a benefit to him. And this was on our show in 2024.
This is where we're at, the grand scheme of college basketball, college athletics in general, right? Like NIL is here to stay. And there's that saying about putting toothpaste back in it. It's not happening. Now there's going to be some guidelines that maybe get put in and stuff. When that happens, I don't know. All I know is right now, college athletics has a level playing field, right? And I'm just saying, like, we got a window that we can take advantage of, and we can win a national championship in football. We can win a national championship in basketball because we can get the best players in the country to come because the playing field is level. Once the rules are put in and guidelines are put in, Coach Kleiman, myself, all the coaches in the country on our campus are going to abide by the rules that are put in place. But right now, right, like,
so you're free for all.
Yeah, hey, we can go get it, right? And if you want to, let's go get it. Let's not be Blockbuster.
All right, So I think the reaction to this, let's make this the top storyline, brought to you by our friends at Alenco. It's alencohome.com, ALENCO home.com. To get hooked up for all your home improvement needs. If you got a project that needs done, talk to our friends at Alenco. Great K-State folks. Okay. You saw the juxtaposition of those two clips there. Beforehand, it's, hey, there's no rules. It's a free, open environment. With NIL, we can go buy the best players and win a national championship. It's a benefit. Well, swing and a miss, big time on that. Each of the last 2 years, you're going to have sub 500 seasons not making the NCAA tournament. Might be the worst team in the Big 12 this year. And then at the West Virginia press conference as well, the NCAA keeps changing the rules on me. And and it's hurting us as a program. And I have 3 guys that can't play right now. And look, it just feels to me like it's floundering, instead of like, hey, we didn't do a very good job with this, with some humility. We didn't see it at the end of last year. There was no press conference at the end of last year to address the season. It's been 2 years of missing big time on this. And it's just like flailing at trying to change what the thought was going into all of this and just make excuses, quite frankly.
It's kind of funny that we're kind of putting these clips together to kind of show, and he just had a press conference where he's like, it doesn't matter what I think because you guys are going to clip everything you want to kind of give the message that you want to get the clips, to get the clicks that you need. So I'm sure that'll be the response to this as well, but it's really just using what he has said. I mean, I continue to be baffled about where we came from and how we got here. He is making an enemy out of people he probably doesn't need to be making an enemy out of as well. But there is no rhyme or reason, and I've said this for about a year now. I think going back to the struggles of last year, and everyone's like, why is this thing not kind of gone off the rails? I was like, there's been no consistent plan or principles set forth that you really hang your hat on, and you kind of just throw darts at a dartboard every year. This is what you get.
Yeah, I mean, there's no consistent messaging. There's no consistent plan in place. And, we just showed it right there. I mean, you can take advantage of this situation. That was September 2024, before the 24-25 season that had Coleman Hawkins, Doug McDaniel, et cetera. And they've been openly talking about winning a national championship here and getting a parade in Manhattan for a long time, to where then, Jerome Tang is saying yesterday how much he loves his guys and the roster that he's put together, but then at the same time complaining basically that he should have 3 guys on his roster instead of maybe some of these other guys on his roster with the rules that are in place, and making comments about that as well. So just a bunch of inconsistencies. At the end of the day, he's right. It doesn't really matter what he does say. I agree with that. Because everybody wants to see results on the court, and nobody's seeing that. And there's just a steady downward trajectory of this program that's now 1-8 in the league. And, I went back to 1947. I decided to stop there. It ties for the second worst start by a K-State team in conference play during that time frame. They got off to a 1-8 start in 84, 85, 99, 2000, 2020, 21, the pandemic season, and then went 0-9 to start league play under Tom Asbury in 1996 to 97. But yeah, you hear those two sound bites mixed together, and it's frustrating to hear that. But we wanted to give you guys, just a reminder of where Jerome Tang was at 18, 20 months ago, what his positioning on all of this was. And now he's talking about inconsistent rules and guidelines, et cetera. Well, and that you got to give him consistent rules. But that's a perfect example that there is never going to be, at least in the immediate future, a consistent set of rules that allow him to fix this. So, and now you're going to have less resources at your disposal. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they go from here, but it's frustrating.
Kind of just flailing a little bit, right? Floundering is what John said, knowing that they really don't have answers. But throughout yesterday's press conference, and the one thing, I don't know why it's hanging with me the most, is like, you're going to clip how you want it to clip to get the message you want and the clicks you need. And I'm just like, no one's making this look bad for you. You guys are. You're 1-8. We're not 1-8. You're 1-8.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and play this clip because we've referenced it a number of times already. There was one short interaction to start the press conference where Jerome Tang was asked by Kellis Robinette whether or not, like, what upset him the most about this effort. And Tang made a point to be like, look, I'm proud of the guys, especially in the second half. I was not upset with the effort. And like, people got mad at that. And that's an easy one to like throw the quote out there on Twitter and people to dunk on it. And I get it when you lose by 34. If he doesn't want to throw his team under the bus in that way for effort, for whatever reason, like that's fine. Like, I get it. It's when he started to get tougher questions and more pushback and things got really snippy that I think we have more of an issue with what's going on here. So we'll play the longer clip here, Nick. This is Jerome Tang fielding some questions and a little bit of pushback from some of the other media members.
You said that it was a message for your players. At some point, though, do you feel like you need to give a message to the fans to not just explain off, hey, today was not a great game, obviously, but why you're at this position after 3 years now and how things do get better moving forward?
Yeah, at the end of the season, we'll talk about that.
Do you think that's going to be...
It doesn't matter what I think, because whatever I say, y'all are going to take whatever you want to and clip it the way you want to and post it the way you want to so you can get the clicks that you need. And that's so it doesn't matter what I say. What matters is what I'm doing with these young men on the floor in practice every day in their daily lives to help them continue to move forward. And then, because this is the crew that I brought in, right? And this is the crew I wanted to roll with, right? And if we're not good enough at the end of the season, right, then we will figure the thing out for the next thing. But no, I don't feel like I need to give an explanation to our fans right now. I want them to know that I'm working really hard and I'm not proud. I'm not happy with the results, but I am proud of the young men that we brought in.
So again, to me, the part that makes me the most mad about that, which I say the most mad, the most frustrating part, like, I generally don't get as worked up about what happens in press conferences as I think most of the fans do, because Jerome Tang is right. You're going to get mad about whatever he says. They're losing by 34 at home to Iowa State. There's no magic bullet. He can walk up to the mic and say anything that's going to make anybody happy. I will vouch for him on that. He's totally correct. However, when he says, hey, we'll talk about that at the end of the season, which I take that to be like in a press conference situation, we'll talk about what went wrong with the season and the roster. That's all I wanted. We talked about that a lot last year. That's all I wanted last year. I wanted the big moment of like, hey guys, we kind of screwed that up, got a little out over our skis, chased too much with the money. We need to reevaluate how we're doing some things. I wanted that so badly, but he didn't do that. Once the season was done, not a peep. And, you know, we had interview requests in, others had interview requests in. He did nothing until he popped up magically in the summer on a show on CycloneFanatic.com, which felt like basically a middle finger to all of us in the media, I assume, for being critical of spending $10+ million and being a horrible team last year. So I don't trust that there will ever be that moment where it gets addressed at the end of the season and talked about. That's nothing about the way this staff is operated would show that there's going to be that moment of humility there at the end of the year. So that's what frustrates me. It's like, okay, Jerome, you can say we'll clip things, and certainly we do. Like, that's, yes, clips, quotes, get out there on Twitter, and you're getting dunked on a lot, buddy. Watch out for those AI clips that are going around from Iowa State fans. There's a lot of dunking going on because the getting's good and the getting's easy right now. But you also brought a lot of that on yourself. You brought a lot of that on yourself with things that you have done, and you're doing the same thing here by saying we'll talk about it at the end of the year and then ditching and ducking out on people. We both play this game, man. I just wish there were a little bit more humility and a little bit more, just be real with us, man. You do the same type of thing on the other side of this. Like, that's how it works. So that's the part that's not what most people are focusing on, but that's the part that kills me.
When he says we're going to talk about it at the end of the year, he doesn't mean with people like us. He means like him and his staff behind closed doors. Like, because we'll never get that kind of autopsy.
But Bruce Weber, okay, Cole said, he was too mean to Bruce. Cole, I remember, I know you were in your corporate job at this point. But I remember after the Marcus Foster season, which was the second Marcus Foster season, when things totally went off the rails with him and there were high expectations. And that season, they missed the tournament. They were like sub 500. There were that was like Trey Harris, like guys were getting kicked off the team. There were, rumors of drug stuff going on. It was a mess. And I remember being in the team meeting room of the ICE practice facility. So it was like even like a pretty intimate press conference environment. DY, certainly, what I'm talking about there. And it was Bruce doing it like an end of the year, like press conference, like where people, I gave him some really tough questions. Again, stuff where I was perhaps even a little too harsh at that point in time. But Bruce stood up there and like answered the questions and did the end of the year post-game press conference after that, like to his credit, after what was just a disaster of a year. And he had sharks circling the water that have been waiting for him to fail the whole time, instead of a bunch of people building him up and doing his bidding like we were, early on for Jerome Tang. So I've seen that happen before for a coach that was in arguably a worse situation, and he stood up there and did the press conference and took the questions and had some humility about it, So anyway, just a thought that popped into my head.
You don't need to be clipped to look bad. Your 1-8 record and losing home by 40 to Iowa State is what makes you look bad.
The irony of it all was when he went on the Cyclone Fanatic stuff, like he went on a podcast of the fan base that hates him more than anybody, instead of anybody with K-State. I mean, the fan base that, was infuriated and rightfully so with the accusations that came out about filming huddles, etc. But aside from that, when he says we'll talk about it at the end of the year, he is right again that it doesn't really matter what he says, because, frankly, we're at this point of his coaching tenure where no matter what he says, everybody's going to be highly skeptical of anything that's laid out. Because what has he told us just in the last year? We played the clip earlier, but also he said they're going to do the Houston model, retention, and then they lose everybody. And they abandon high school recruiting, and they don't have anybody coming in for the high school classes the last couple of years. So there's no retention model. Houston's a program that recruits the high school ranks heavily. Everybody to see two of their best players are true freshmen this year. So they're not following that pattern. He says Moby Kegaruka is the best athlete in the country, PJ Haggerty the best point guard in the country, etc. Like, you hear things like that, hyperbolic, that just don't come to fruition. You hear him talking about winning a national championship here, and then when he's asked about it, and he says, the other day after the game against Iowa State, how disappointed he is, and I get he's standing up for his team, but saying he's not disappointed at all. The guy who told us to expect to win is now saying the third worst home loss in school history on your home court. Not disappointed. I love my guys. I love the group that I brought in, etc. A bunch of fluff to try and prop him up, probably because he feels like he has to, similar to what we criticized Chris Kleinman for, or I did, where he doesn't think he can speak harshly about them, or they might just fold up and completely quit. If they haven't quit, 34-point loss on your home court, and that's the effort that results in it, and you played hard, I don't know. So whatever he says, I'm personally going to be very, very skeptical of any plan laid out. They lay out a plan, they bring in new coaches, Bill Peterson, Matthew Driscoll, and now the offense has been a wreck in Big 12 play. And I really liked the Matthew Driscoll hire, and I loved having him on the show and the conversation that he and I had. It sucks that it's not working out either. I just don't. He's tried a bunch of different things. They've thrown a bunch of money at it. Now they've tried coaching staff changes. Nothing is working. And at this point, the relationship moving forward seems untenable. I don't see how it's not going to get any better. Jerome Tang has pretty much lost everybody in his corner. The fan base.
I reference them. If you go, obviously I know social media is not a perfect reflection of where things are at, but there is people that we know for sure have been in his corner over and over and over again. They don't appear to be in his corner anymore. More and more players speaking out. Like, obviously Jake Pullen was a big one, but Clint Stewart, who kind of does games, calls for not, is it ESPN Plus? I'm probably murdering that, but Clint Stewart calls games, and he even said that was hard to watch. He couldn't come up with the words. And I don't know how it gets better. I really don't.
Well, let's take a break and talk about some of that, because the walls are closing in from a lot of different places, and I want to there's an important point to make about Clint Stewart beyond just the fact that he calls games. We'll do that next.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
I just thought of this. Clint Stewart, the obvious connection there is that he coached David Castillo in high school. David Castillo, we were frustrated that Jerome Tang chose him as one of the guys to call out after that was the Kansas game, right? He's one of the few, of the thing that you're trying to do, culture program, get a guy to develop. He's like the one story that's been pretty successful with that. And then he's the guy that gets called out. So Cole, I understand the point of hey, just like Chris Kleiman, you're worried about your guys quitting. And if you go say their effort was terrible after a 34-point loss, maybe they're more apt to quit. But you just called out a couple guys a week ago, and one of them is probably the last guy on the team that should be getting called out. So again, just more inconsistency in how this is going. I don't, do we think David Castillo is going to be back next year? That'd be one building block if you got to do it. I don't know. It does feel untenable. Jacob Pullen's out there tweeting about how tough it was to watch. That's an ally that you'd like to have if you're a coach at K-State. I don't know if there were other former players that you guys saw, but you're right. Just people, the people that have been supplying the money, important people at K-State, obviously the fans, media here, like us, that were as friendly as could possibly be. And again, I just come back to it kills me. I just wish there were more humility from him in all of this, because I was so willing to grant some forgiveness here, some understanding, I think that's what's lost it more than anything is just the attitude. It's not just the losing. I'm not naive enough to say that you can be losing games like this and have the support of everybody, but it wouldn't be as negative as it is right now if the attitude were different. But the attitude, I just feel has been such a problem. It's very easy to push people away with that,
especially when the constituents of a head coach are basically his fans, and he's sitting there 1-8, just lost back-to-back home games by 20+ and 30+ points, and he's asked about and given a perfect opportunity to a message to fans to maybe take accountability and show that humility, and instead says, I don't have anything to say to the fans. I mean, that was not a mean question or a mean proposal. That was an opportunity given to the head coach in that situation to take advantage of his microphone and his podium to say a message to the fans when they probably need it the most. And he basically passed and said, nah, I'm good.
Well, he gave a message to the fans post-game radio after the BYU game in Manhattan when he said we need more purple in this building, and made a comment about the crowd and attendance, which was basically sold out, but he was unhappy that there were so many BYU fans in there for a K-State team that wasn't playing good basketball. And look at the crowd yesterday. Pretty darn solid crowd for a 10-11 team that's 1-7 in the league. People have come, they have supported him. He talks about how great this fan base is in the past, and people are still showing up for whatever reason, and to lay that effort on the line is bizarre. Now, John, I will say, when we had him on, you and me were on the show with him, in August this last year. He did come on late late before the season on 3-Maw, and he did show a little bit of humility in that he said, he took accountability for the way that he handled things last year and made some different changes to it. Didn't get into a lot of detail of what specifically they were, but acknowledged his failures. But again, nothing changed. I'm actually to the point where, again, it just, even if he showed accountability, it wouldn't really mean anything to me in this instance. I'm usually the guy most critical of what's said in the press conferences. I know I criticized Chris Kleiman all season for the things he said, but because of the steady downward trajectory that we have seen at this point, no matter what he says, I just don't see any way it gets fixed. Even if he says, this is my fault, I own it, I'm going to fix it, I need to do a better job, etc. It's unacceptable. I told these fans I'm going to win a national championship here. I'm not even close to delivering on it. I've taken all this money from people. We've had top 20 financial resources. I have failed everybody that is given to this university, etc. Even if he said it, that's nice. But I just see 16 and 17 last year, from 19 and 15 the year before, from an Elite Eight appearance the year before that in year one, to now probably going 2 and 16 or 3 and 15 in the Big 12 and having the worst record that we've seen since the Asbury days. So, it's just not going to get righted.
I get two things. One, you talked about it being untenable, and I'm starting to feel that way. As contentious as the press conference was on Sunday, like, can you just run that over and over again for another full year? I mean, it's just the temperature is very, very hot between Jerome Tang and his fans, between Jerome Tang and the media, just because, I mean, it's his personality, so I don't want him, he needs to be himself, but he's always been that guy in press conferences, right, that will push back, that has no problem with confrontation. So I assume you will see more of that going forward. I'd also say, in terms of like how bad the losses are starting to get, and I almost hate doing this because I almost want to throw up, but the injuries have made it worse. The guys being out have made it worse. Now, they wouldn't be winning still if they had those guys, but the fact that you don't have Abdi Bashir and that you don't have Kamari McGriff, and some of the other guys, that's why Marcus Johnson is having to go into the game and chuck shots and give up shots. That's why CJ Jones is playing 15, 20 minutes a game and missing every shot he takes. He's now below 30% on the year, I think, for the field. It wouldn't turn losses into wins, but you would have more Abdi Bashir and less CJ Jones. You would have more Kamari McGriff and less Marcus Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, totally fair and true.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a 25-point loss or something instead of a 34-point loss, right? Like, and so it's not like as just jarring. Like, you're not flipping the game on and seeing 49-17 and being.
And that wasn't me playing defense. I just feel like we're not telling the entire story if we don't say.
Well, I mean, that's a reality.
That's the talent gap.
I would push back a bit and say, I don't want to make it about. I don't want to attack. Why is Marcus Johnson on the roster?
Yeah, you go back. We said the portal plan didn't make sense, and we got some pushback, I think, from them on it, and it's starting to come to fruition. And who's to say Kamari McGriff plays more than 7 minutes anyway? Like, I think the last two games before he got injured and missed every game since, he was in foul trouble, right? Didn't he get like 5 fouls in 9 minutes one night? That might have been the Arizona game. Like, he's getting at least 4 fouls a night. His availability, he was barely playing 20 plus minutes a game anyway. And Abdi Bashir, when he's shooting well, he's going to play 35 minutes. When he's not, he's going to play 10.
Yeah. Marcus Johnson's like 1 for 15 or something from 3 this year. I mean, thought that was the idea. Jerome Tang called him a weapon. He hasn't been that when he's in there to shoot the ball. CJ Jones, I mean, I guess we were fine. Again, not perfect messengers. We were fine. I think generally with CJ Jones coming back thinking, if he's going to be like your 5th guard or something coming off the bench, then like, okay. But you did get an up close and personal view of him last year as not a very effective Big 12 guard. So, again, maybe why is he on the roster? But you are correct. The injuries have exacerbated a lot of the problems that were there. There's no doubt about that. Full stop. And Cole, I was going to say too, I am glad that you brought up that Jerome Tang came on the show in August. So maybe it is unfair for me to say never an ounce of humility or never any, because he did show some in that interview. It just to me felt like it was after a long period of hiding and not taking much responsibility. And it just, humility has not typically been the vibe there, but he did come on our show and do that. And we did love when he was not a very humble guy after beating Kentucky and talking about we've got more dudes than them. And I thought he was pushing the program forward when he said expect to win and all the stuff over the chant and everything that happened in year one. I thought, hey, K-State needs this attitude. So again, we're hypocritical too, for sure. Nobody's perfect in all this. Nobody at all.
No, we love so many of the things that he said. Even after the season where they went to the NIT in 23-24, when we played, we're out at Colbert Hills with them and doing the thing with Wildcat NIL and K-State basketball. Part of that clip that we didn't include was him talking about the Blockbuster Netflix comparison. And, you want to be Blockbuster, you want to be Netflix, and how it went out of business and didn't take the deal from Netflix, be forward thinking, et cetera. And, this is the time to win a national championship. Give us the money now, attach a national championship to your name when there's no guardrails. Essentially the Texas Tech model. He was ahead of what Texas Tech was doing before Texas Tech was doing it in football. Like what he laid out to us made a lot of sense. And we were huge fans of it. I remember coming away from that and saying, man, that's really forward thinking. That's smart. Like put all the money in right now, try to take advantage of them being no guardrails when it comes to NIL before rev sharing and everything comes into place, and go win a title. And then you'll ever have a national title or Final Four attached to your name. And it's easier to recruit. All of that made a ton of sense. And unfortunately, none of it's actually worked into what he said. So, we're hypocritical. I was a huge fan of Jerome Tang. I defended him and the staff relentlessly for years. And obviously, you just can't defend it anymore with what's transpiring. So it's disappointing. I hate that we're here. I hate that I've had to talk about two K-State coaches the way that I have in basketball and football over the last 4 to 5 months. It's brutal, man.
One had a little bit more humility. So that's the difference between the two. I hate saying that too, but I think that's very fair. The difference between those two coaches. What I would say is Jerome Tang has always had a good vision, I think, of where he wants to take something, of what he thinks needs to happen. And this goes back, I think you guys can probably vouch or attest. I think I said this even before last season. Man needs a general manager. He can fundraise and he can set up a vision. He needs someone else to execute it.
Yeah, I think the grand vision is there. It's the steps to how to execute to get to that vision that have just never been there.
A plan. But that's why general manager, I think, is what he needs.
Yeah, which now it's too late. You're right. You should have hired a GM in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we talked about what do you do if you're Gene Taylor moving forward and solutions. And I talked about put the restructure on the contract and give him resources next year. If he doesn't agree to it, don't give him resources. The writing's on the wall at this point for me, guys. It's not going to work either way. Next year won't be good, in my opinion. Like, $18.7 million is too much to pay a basketball coach, but to go away. But I just don't see anything getting fixed. And, you just have to hope. At this point, like if I'm Gene Taylor, I'm like, look, this is an untenable situation. Let's settle. We're not going to pay $18.7 million. Let's settle at like $9 or $10 million and just part ways. But that's my stance. But again, that's a difficult situation for Gene and the athletic department and everybody involved to stomach that. And I don't even know if Jerome Tang would. I mean, frankly, I don't know.
I was going to say both sides. You were asking.
Takes two to tango, I think is what DY was saying there.
Yeah, you're asking them to basically say pass up on $1 million, and I don't get that vibe.
No.
It just depends. I mean, do you want to be miserable another year just to get a paycheck? Like if I could take.
I know what we would do. or a lot of people would do, but you got to block that out, man. You got to say, what do you think Jerome Tang would do? What do we know about Jerome Tang?
Yeah. Well, I just say if I
Also-
go back to where I'm happy, I'd rather be happy and just take $9 million to walk
You're talking
away.
about the guy that bet K-State over to get this contract.
And I would say too, in Jerome Tang's defense, because I agree with you guys, my guess would be he doesn't take a dime less than what's on that buyout. But
Some people wouldn't.
But yeah, in his defense, it is very easy for us to sit here and say, oh, we would easily forfeit $8 million or whatever, whatever we're talking, $8-9 million, just to, for our happiness sake. It's a really nice, quaint thing to say when you're not the person in that situation. It's much different when you are in that situation and you're thinking about what that money could do. And if you're in that position where you become a high major basketball coach, you do have a healthy ego. You have to. And so there's probably a part of you that's like, hey, whatever NIL money they give me, like, we'll figure something out. We'll do it. Like, you're going to have that thought in your head. And like, I'm not coughing up. You got a lot of pride. Like, I just think it's very easy for us to sit here and say we would not take the $8 or $9 million. I think it's a much different thing. If you're the person actually in the situation, what would everybody do?
Go home and tell your wife that you had a chance to get 8 more.
Yeah.
But you said no thanks. See how that goes.
Yeah, that's true. Vanessa, how do you feel about that? Could you use an extra $8 million?
Our stance has always been as a family, like, if I would have made $20 million over 4 years, we would be set for life. We don't need more than that. I get that these people get into these positions and competitive people want to continue to make more and more. Once you get a taste of it, you just keep going. I've obviously, most of us and our listeners have never been in that position. So it's hard to say what we would actually be like. As I sit here, not in that position, I would say if I could take, if I would have made $12 million over 4 years and then I can take $9 million to not work again, just get $9 million, to go away and be happy, I'd take that. But he's in a different position than I am. I'm not in those shoes. So I don't know. Gene Taylor has to weigh the cost benefits, reward, and the negatives here. What are the pros and cons? Because, the buyout only drops $3 million if you wait another year. And if you don't think it's going to fix in a year from now and you think it's untenable, you have to weigh, does saving $3 million on a buyout, what's the negative to that? The basketball program crumbles another year. And I know basketball is not a gigantic revenue producing sport, but season ticket sales, donations completely plummet. That $3 million is probably getting lost in savings there, getting lost for, paying Jerome Tang what you are and the failures of next season if he is back, because I know a lot of people that are not renewing.
I imagine Gene Taylor's going to be pretty proactive, you would think, in the next month or two. I know people say that that's not necessarily been his MO in the entire time that he's been the athletic director, but he has to know that he needs a solution here, because if he can't find one, then people are going to look at the guy that gave Jerome the contract. And that was Gene. And I'm not even saying that's completely fair to Gene. At the end of the day, he has to be held. He is the one that gave the contract. He's the athletic director. He leads the department. That comes with accountability. But it's funny to talk about it in that way too. And this is just another layer of the conversation. And I don't know if we've touched on it enough. Gene basically did what everyone wanted him to do, though, in that moment.
Yeah, I feel like we had this discussion, and I don't, there's a lot of time for this, but I think the best point that's being made here by Cole is that $3 million is not that much. Like, if you want this to significantly go down, you're talking about like another 2 years, and even then, it's still a ton of money. Like, this is why it's such a, frankly, horrible position to be in, because you're not saving that much by going in another year. So really, I feel like the question you have to ask yourself is like, is there not a chance that like next year is better? Is there a chance that this can still be like a tenable relationship long term and like a successful thing long term?
Sure.
Because otherwise, I mean, you're basically just playing this game, and I don't know where you come up with the money, and I don't know how this is where I think there are probably creative solutions being workshopped at this point to figure that out, because I don't know what the other way about doing it. it's going to be miserable for everybody involved. And then it's only down, so next year the question's, okay, are we paying him $15 million to go away? And like, does that sound much different than 18? It really doesn't. So
yeah. No, you're totally right. But you at least have more time to come up with the money. I think that's part
yeah.
of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fair.
It's only $3 million less, but you get more time to come up with that. That's, I think, part of the conversation everyone misses a little bit. Yeah, it's only $3 million less. Well, you get 12 more months, 14 more months to do that if you want to go that route. Look, the only way you get that contract and Gene Taylor get that contract to Jerome Tang is because you never think it gets to this point. So, I mean, Gene Taylor had 100% confidence in Jerome Tang and put the weight of his confidence behind him. And quite frankly, Jerome let him down.
Yeah, no, we said do whatever it takes to get it done. Now, when he announced he was coming back, I don't think any of us saw the contract right away and saw, it's a $18.7 million buyout. Gosh, that seems a little steep for a guy.
Yeah, you thought maybe you didn't have to go to those but maybe they did. Maybe
and the way that it only drops $3 million a year. Yeah, and so I mean that's a little steep for a guy that
was Arkansas
run in year one. I mean, it wasn't like it was coming off a year where he made the NIT. So, yeah.
And was that an actual option?
I know, yeah. I don't think it was at this point.
I mean, everything in hindsight now, we wanted to like construe it in a different way. Maybe it was. Maybe they panicked and went to Calipari after they got told no a few times too.
Yeah. So, I don't know. All I know is I'm very confident that K-State basketball, if Jerome Tang's back next year as the head coach, is not going to have much success because I don't see the financial resources being allocated there, and I don't think they should be because of the product on the court, unless there was some grand plan and GM hired and humility shown that John's talked about. Otherwise, like it's just, I don't see it working moving forward. Hate it, but Gene Taylor's got a lot to figure out over the next 5 to 6 weeks.
Spin zone. Okay, ready? Little spin zone. I'll end us on a high note here. We've spent a lot of time being frustrated and critical of like just not. My phrase has always been meeting the moment in college athletics right now and doing what you got to do to survive to whatever the next iteration of things are going to be. And a part of that has been looking around and seeing, Kansas got $300 million from David Booth. Utah took a $500 million private equity deal. Like we're seeing some schools in the Big 12 really step up their financial commitment. However, you have to do it, man, by hook or by crook, because I know people recoil at the idea of like Utah doing private equity. The Big 12, by the way, I mean, K-State can get some money if this Big 12 private equity deal goes through, which has been reported is going to. It's, I think you'd probably be spending like the whole thing on Jerome Tang's buyout if you did that. But that's like the direction I would like to see things go at this point. Actually, the more you look into Utah's private equity deal, I'm like, I don't know. It does seem like it makes some sense to me. It's pretty creative there. So maybe Spin Zone having a giant $18 million problem will force you to explore some of these creative routes that may not have happened otherwise, because everybody was content to just be like, well, there's some risk here and we just got to sit back and let this all take its course. Maybe this now will be a nice little, combined with Colin Klein coming in, by the way, who a coach that you need to support that knows how it needs to be done. Maybe all that will kind of spark some action here that'll be good long term. And we'll look back 5 years from now and be like, man, thank goodness we all endured the 3 years of basketball that we did because of all this.
Is that a Kurtz blast coming through? Is that what I detect? I think I hear a Kurtz blast.
We need a different name for it, but it sure was.
I don't want my name to be associated with anything as foul as what the blast has come to be known as. Okay, especially as I think about Harambe's video on the Discord that typically plays when we have a man blast situation. I want to cleanse my name of any of this. Okay, so you can call it whatever you want to call it, except for a Kurtz blast. That is the only thing. I'm not endorsing that. That is not endorsed by me. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Discord listeners on the show, wherever, come up with a name for John's bold proclamation. I think John might be on to something. I think he might be on to something.
So. Patreon.com/3maw if you want to get signed up, if you want extra bonus audio content, if you want access to the Discord where we're talking all the time about whatever's going on, good or bad. We appreciate everybody who's come on in the last few months. Anything else that you guys want to say? You ready to wrap it up? You had enough of this? An hour? I know I have.
Yeah. Probably time to pivot to football discussion again. We've 3 consecutive basketball shows. We're going to have to make an audible here and talk some football again soon.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I guess it depends on, what DY said. It feels like everything. Did I say this earlier? 2018 K-State football vibes with like what's happening and losing and the media, the press conferences and the battles between coach and shout out to Kellis, Mason, Wyatt, DY Fitz, like everybody that's out there in those press conferences. Because I remember what it felt like in 2018, walking into that room every time, and you're just like, "Oh, this is going to be a battle, dude!" Like,
yeah, for sure. And of that group, and I've still been contentious. I've said some very critical things on the show. I got the most pushback for some reason, so whatever. I'm still bitter about that. I was the one to get the finger pointed at them.
Yeah, and I just sit back here, in my home in South Olathe. Under protected
Cole, that's because nobody wants to drive all the way to the WinStar at the border of Texas and Oklahoma to say anything to you.
That was why the other day I was like, why am I getting clipped and not Cole? Like, I gotta live here.
Yeah. Well, I am safe 2 hours away. I'm not at the press conferences, so I don't have to endure it. I mean, I was on the beat when it was Frank Martin at basketball and Bill Snyder, getting things taken off again in 1.0. So things were going pretty well. Obviously, there were some contentious moments with Frank, with other media members, but
not with you. Not with you.
Yeah,
that was, Cole was getting letters of recommendation from Frank Martin. He didn't need any help in the press conferences.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure I'm probably hated by a lot of, I'm pretty sure Bruce Weber doesn't care for me. I'm sure Jerome Tang and the staff, they don't care for me now. And, I don't show my face at these press conferences. I'm just a fan that, co-hosts a podcast. So
Cole asked Rob Cassidy about how Frank Martin press conferences went. He's screaming, check your sources at him,
Frank and Kellis, Rob and Kellis, they had it rough at times. So
yeah, right. Yeah, Kellis got shamed for making Jacob Pullen cry like that. Yeah.
I mean, I was obviously at a press conference in Tucson, and it's like, Kellis, you asshole! How dare you? So,
how dare you ask Jacob Pullen what it feels like to lose a game that he just lost when he's on the podium? How dare you? How dare you do that?
I'm not. Hey, John, I'm backing out of this. Like, Frank, we love you. The 2 shows we did with Frank were maybe 2 of my favorite shows we've done on 3maw, and out of the 450 or whatever it is now that we've done just last summer. So
yeah, what a time to be alive. All right, I'll back off here. Hopefully some levity was nice for everybody at the end of the show. Thank you to Holiday. Get your Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon, your 360 vodka. If you need home improvement work done, you got a project, call our friends at Alinco. Thank you to Nick Springer behind the scenes, especially today. Had to do some extra work with those clips. We greatly appreciate it. For DY and Cole, I am John. Take care. We'll talk to you soon here on 3maw.